Take a moment right now and slow everything down. Breathe in gently and let your thoughts settle for a short while. Step away from all the mental noise and bring your attention back inside yourself. There is something you have been sensing lately that is hard to explain in normal words. A strange tightness may appear in your chest without warning. A sudden memory of someone can show up out of nowhere. And there is this restless, almost electric feeling sitting quietly under your normal day. It does not feel random, and it does not feel like just imagination. It feels like a signal, as if something deeper inside you is picking up movement before your mind can understand it. Your deeper awareness works in a way that is faster than logic. It notices changes before any clear proof appears in the outside world. That is why you sometimes feel something shifting even when nothing has been said or shown. That soft pull in your chest that you often ignore as overthinking is actually your inner awareness trying to speak. Something is not fully closed yet. Something is still in motion. And if you have been feeling that pull, that quiet tension, you already know what I'm talking about. Stay with this for a moment because it gets deeper than you think. If you are noticing that pressure building inside you, understand this is often how emotional shifts begin. Before anything changes on the outside, something starts moving on the inside first. It feels like silent tension, like space building between what was and what is becoming. And right now, that is the phase you may be stepping into. There is a sense that things are not as still as they look. Small openings begin to form where everything once felt closed. Not loud changes, not obvious signs, but subtle shifts you can feel more than explain. The connection you feel has not simply vanished the way your fears sometimes suggest. While you were focused on your own silence and distance, something was also happening on the other side. The emotional layers around them were not as solid as they appeared. The walls they built, made of pride, fear, and control, have slowly started to weaken over time. And now, what they once pushed down is starting to rise again. It is not just memory. It is emotion returning with clarity. If you have been sensing them more lately, even without contact, you are not imagining that inner pull. Comment or respond if you felt it too, because this is where things start to shift in ways you cannot always see yet. During the time apart, their life may have looked normal from the outside, calm, busy, controlled, like they had moved forward without looking back. But appearances can be misleading. What looked like confidence was often just a cover used to keep emotions contained. When a person avoids something they feel too strongly, they often replace it with distractions, routines, and noise just to stay steady. But underneath all of that, the real feelings do not disappear. They wait. They build quietly in the background, and slowly that pressure becomes harder to ignore. Nights become heavier, thoughts become less controllable. Even in silence, reminders start slipping back in. They may tell themselves stories to justify the distance, calling it logic, calling it protection, calling it the right choice. But emotions do not always agree with logic, and over time, what they avoided starts becoming what they cannot stop thinking about. The more they tried to create space, the more that space started filling with thoughts of you. Not in a loud way, but in small moments, in pauses, in emptiness, in those quiet gaps when nothing else distracts the mind. Stay with this because what comes next explains the real shift that is building underneath all of it. Because there comes a point where avoidance stops working the way it used to. A person can only run from their own emotions for so long before they begin to feel exhausted by the effort. And that is where things quietly change. The mind that once convinced them to move away starts losing its control. What they thought would fade over time instead becomes clearer with time. The absence does not erase the connection, it sharpens it. The silence does not end the feeling, it makes it more noticeable. And slowly they begin to see something they were not ready to admit before, that what they shared with you was not casual or ordinary. It reached deeper layers inside them, places they do not easily open to anyone. So even when they try to focus elsewhere, something keeps pulling their attention back, not as a decision, but as a feeling that returns again and again. And now, this is the part where everything starts to feel different, even if nothing has physically changed yet, because internally the shift has already begun. It has changed how they see everything around them. Because once a person truly feels that a connection is different, they cannot go back to treating it like something ordinary. Their mind may still try to argue, it may still try to reduce the meaning, but the deeper part of them keeps pulling in the opposite direction. And that inner pull becomes stronger with time, not weaker. There are nights when they sit alone and suddenly remember things they thought they had moved past. Small moments that once looked simple now feel heavy with meaning. The way you reacted in difficult situations, the quiet comfort your presence brought without effort, the ease of being around someone where there is no need to pretend or perform. That kind of emotional safety is not common, and once it is gone, it does not get replaced easily. They have tried to replace it in different ways, different distractions, different routines, but nothing really holds its place. The more they searched outside, the more clearly they began to see what was already there between you. At first, pride told them it was nothing serious, that they could move on without difficulty, that they were above the feeling, but pride only lasts until it meets emotional reality. And now that moment has arrived. Stay with this because the shift is becoming clearer. They are now starting to view the connection in a completely different way. It no longer feels like something they can simply choose to keep or discard whenever they want. It feels deeper than that, more fixed, more real. Something in them changed after meeting you, and they are beginning to understand it cannot be undone or ignored. While this realization has been growing inside them, something has also been shifting inside you. Even if you still think about them from time to time, you are not in the same emotional position you once were. Something in you has become steadier, more aware, more grounded. You have experienced what it feels like to reach towards someone who does not always meet you halfway. You felt the emotional weight of trying too hard for too long, and slowly, without drama or noise, you started pulling your energy back, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. That change is not small, it is actually the turning point. Because when your focus was always outside of you, the connection felt unbalanced, like your attention was doing all the work. But when you began to center yourself again, everything shifted. If this resonates with you, stay here because this part explains what happens next in ways most people don't notice at first. There was a time when your emotional energy was directed mostly toward them. Your mood, your thoughts, even your sense of peace would rise or fall depending on their presence, their reply, or their silence. But that pattern slowly started to break. Not suddenly, not in a dramatic moment, but in quiet realization. You began to understand that your own peace cannot depend entirely on someone else's behavior, and that understanding changed your direction. You stopped overextending. You stopped trying to fill silence with effort. You stopped making yourself smaller just to keep something alive. And when that happened, something in the dynamic between you naturally changed as well. Because attention that is constantly reaching outward eventually becomes taken for granted. But when that same attention becomes calm, grounded, and self-contained, its absence is felt in a completely different way. That is what is happening now. They are noticing the change in you, even if they cannot explain it clearly. There is less urgency, less availability, less emotional chasing, and that absence is creating awareness. Not confusion only, but recognition, because now they are being forced to sit with what your presence actually meant to them. And that realization is not passing quickly. It is staying. It is repeating. It is growing stronger in quiet moments they did not expect. Stay with this, because it goes even deeper. What they are beginning to understand is not just that they miss attention, but that they miss something far more specific. They miss your emotional depth, your understanding, the way you made space for them without forcing them to explain everything, the way they could be themselves without feeling judged or pressured. That kind of emotional comfort is rare, and it is not easy to find again once it is gone. At first, they may have thought distance would reduce the feeling, that time would soften it. That silence would weaken the bond, but instead, the opposite has happened. The absence has made things clearer, not smaller, and now even normal moments in their day can trigger thoughts of you without warning. A quiet moment, a familiar place, a random memory they did not invite, and it catches them off guard because they cannot fully control it anymore. The effort to push it away is becoming heavier than the feeling itself, and that is where things begin to shift. Because when resistance becomes too tiring, awareness starts to take over. They are now looking back at things they once overlooked. The patience you showed, the care you gave, the effort you made when they were not fully present. Those memories are no longer neutral. They carry meaning now, and that meaning is not fading. It is building. Stay here because this is where everything begins to feel different even before anything changes on the outside. What existed between you was never something shallow or temporary. Something inside them truly recognized something real in you. And once that kind of deep recognition happens, it does not just disappear because time passes or silence grows. It stays. It changes form, but it does not vanish. That shift in understanding has also changed how your presence feels in their mind. Even if they do not openly express it, they sense that something is different now. They feel you are no longer emotionally reaching toward them the way you once did. There is less chasing, less waiting, less emotional pulling. Instead, there is a calmer version of you that feels more centered and less dependent on their response. And strangely, that calmness has made their awareness of you even stronger, because when someone stops overextending emotionally and starts returning to themselves, their energy changes completely. You became steadier, more grounded. And in that stillness, they were left alone with the full weight of their own feelings without the distraction of your earlier emotional reach. If this is making sense, stay with this because it goes deeper than it looks. Now their thoughts keep circling back again and again. They cannot fully step away from what they feel anymore. The truth is becoming harder to ignore with each passing day. You are not just someone they think about lightly. You have become someone who changed how they experience emotional closeness itself. And for a person who has been used to control and emotional distance, that kind of realization is not easy to hold. Because once someone truly sees how much another person matters, they are also forced to face everything that comes with it. Opening up, being vulnerable, risking rejection. Fear has been guiding many of their choices for a long time. Fear of getting hurt, fear of losing control, fear of being fully seen and then left behind. But fear has limits, and they are reaching that limit now. The effort it takes to keep everything buried is becoming heavier than simply facing what they feel. The silence between you is no longer just silence for them. It feels full. It feels loud in a strange emotional way. Every day that passes without contact adds more internal pressure instead of reducing it. Stay here, because this is where the shift becomes noticeable. This is also why the emotional energy you have been sensing feels stronger lately. Something inside them is moving toward change, even if they are not fully aware of how to explain it. It is not forced. It is not planned. It is something that happens naturally when feelings can no longer stay contained the same way. They are beginning to understand that losing you would not simply mean losing a person. It would feel like losing something that helped them understand themselves better. And that kind of realization creates deep inner tension. One part of them wants safety, distance, and emotional protection, but another part cannot stop circling back to you, thinking, remembering, imagining what it would be like to reconnect. They replay different moments in their head, what they would say, how you might respond, whether the timing has already passed. Those thoughts do not leave easily. They return again and again. There are moments when they almost act, almost reach out, almost break the silence. But fear still interrupts at the last second. Not because the feeling is weak, but because it is strong. And over time, even fear starts to lose its control. If you are still with this, you can feel how this is building. Now, something important is happening underneath all of this. The connection is no longer something they can simply push aside or reduce in importance. It has taken a deeper place inside them. And when something reaches that level, it changes how a person sees everything around them. Memories that once felt ordinary now carry meaning. Small details come back unexpectedly. A sound, a place, a quiet moment during the day, all of it can bring you back into their awareness without warning. At first, they tried to resist it, tried to distract themselves, tried to replace the feeling with activity or distance. But it did not work the way they expected. Instead of fading, the awareness grew sharper. The more they tried to move away from it, the more clearly they felt its presence. This is why their emotional state feels more unstable internally, even if they appear fine on the outside. The walls they built are no longer as effective as they once were. And now, beneath all that resistance, there is a simple truth becoming impossible to avoid. No one else has touched them in the same way. No one else created that same sense of being seen and understood. And once a person realizes that, something inside them begins to shift permanently. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. And from that point, silence starts to feel heavier than honesty. What existed between you was never something shallow or temporary. Something inside them truly recognized something real in you. And once that kind of deep recognition happens, it does not simply fade just because time passes or silence stretches longer. It stays alive in the background, shaping how they see everything, even when they try not to. That shift in understanding has also changed how your presence feels in their mind in a very basic way. Even if they cannot fully explain it, they feel that something is different now. They sense that you are no longer emotionally reaching toward them the same way you once were. There is less chasing, less waiting, less emotional dependence on what they say or do. And instead, there is a calmer version of you forming, more grounded, more self-contained, less affected by their responses. Strangely, that calmness has made their awareness of you even stronger than before. Because when someone stops over-pushing love outward and starts returning back to themselves, their energy becomes clearer, quieter, but far more noticeable. You became still, and in that stillness, they were left alone with the full weight of their own emotions without your earlier urgency covering it up. If you are still following this, stay with it, because what happens next explains the deeper layer. Now their thoughts are looping back again and again even when they try to move forward. The truth is no longer something they can easily push aside. You are not just a passing thought or a simple memory to them. You have become someone who reshaped how they understand closeness and emotional connection. And for a person who is used to control, distance, or emotional restraint, that realization feels heavy. Because once someone fully understands how deeply another person matters, they are forced to face everything that comes with it. Openness, vulnerability, risk, and emotional exposure. Fear has been steering many of their decisions for a long time. Fear of being hurt, fear of losing control, fear of being fully seen and then abandoned. But fear does not stay powerful forever. There comes a point where holding everything inside becomes more painful than simply facing it, and they are slowly reaching that point now. The silence between you is no longer neutral for them. It feels full, almost loud in its own way. Each passing day without contact adds pressure inside instead of relief. Stay here because the shift is becoming more obvious. This is also why the energy you may be sensing feels different lately. Something in them is moving toward change, even if they are not fully able to explain it. It is not forced or planned. It is what happens when emotions can no longer stay locked in the same place. They are beginning to understand that losing you would not just mean losing a person from their life. It would feel like losing a part of their emotional awareness, something that helped them understand themselves in a deeper way, and that creates internal conflict. One part of them wants distance, safety, and emotional protection, but another part keeps pulling back toward you again and again, thinking, remembering, replaying moments, imagining what contact would feel like now. They picture conversations, possible outcomes, even timing that might already feel complicated. These thoughts do not leave easily. They return in quiet moments, in pauses, in nights when everything slows down. There are times when they almost reach out, almost break the silence, almost act on the feeling, but fear still interrupts at the final step. Not because the emotion is weak, but because it is too strong to handle easily. And over time, even that fear begins to lose stability. If you are still here, you can feel how this is building. And beneath all of this, something even deeper is changing. The connection is no longer something they can mentally minimize or push to the side. It has taken root in a way that changes how they interpret everything around them. Memories that once felt ordinary now carry emotional weight. Small details return unexpectedly. A place, a sound, a quiet moment in the day, all of it can bring your presence back into their awareness without warning. At first, they resisted it. They tried to stay busy, distract themselves, convince themselves it would fade. But it did not fade the way they expected. Instead, it became clearer, stronger in quiet ways, more persistent in still moments. And this creates tension inside them because their outer behavior and inner reality are no longer aligned. On the outside, they may still appear composed, but inside something is shifting. The walls they relied on are no longer fully holding. And under all of that, a simple truth keeps becoming harder to ignore. No one else has made them feel the same depth of connection, recognition, and emotional understanding. And once a person reaches that realization, something permanent begins to change in how they think, how they feel, and how they respond to silence itself. What existed between you was never surface level, and it was never something the mind could simply downgrade with time. Something inside them genuinely recognizes something real inside you. And that kind of recognition does not dissolve just because space appears or silence stretches longer. It continues quietly, shaping how they interpret everything, even when they try to act unaffected. That shift has also changed how your presence lives inside their thoughts. Even without words, even without contact, they feel that something is different now. They sense you are no longer emotionally leaning toward them the way you once were. The chasing energy is gone. The constant checking, the waiting, the emotional stretching toward them has reduced. And instead, what remains is a calmer version of you. More centered, more self-contained, less reactive to their presence or absence. And strangely, that is exactly what has made their awareness of you intensify. Because when someone stops overgiving emotionally and returns back to themselves, their energy becomes quieter but far more noticeable. You became still, and in that stillness, they were left alone with their own emotional reality without distraction. If you are still following this, stay here, because this is where the deeper shift begins to show itself more clearly. Now their thoughts do not stay in one place. They circle back, repeat, return, even when they try to focus elsewhere. The truth they once kept at a distance is no longer staying quiet. You are not just a memory or a passing emotional impression to them. You have become someone who changed the way they experience emotional closeness itself. And for someone who has relied on control, emotional distance, or self-protection, that realization is not easy to hold. Because once a person fully sees the depth of what they feel for someone, they also become aware of everything that comes with it. Vulnerability, exposure, emotional uncertainty, and the risk of being hurt. Fear has guided many of their decisions for a long time. Fear of losing control, fear of being too open, fear of being seen deeply and then left with nothing to hold on to. But fear has a limit, and they are quietly reaching that limit now. The silence between you is no longer empty in their experience. It feels active, charged, full of unsaid meaning. Every day without contact adds more pressure instead of releasing it. Stay with this, because the inner movement is becoming harder for them to ignore. This is also why what you are sensing feels stronger lately, even without clear signs. Something inside them is no longer staying still. It is not a planned decision or a sudden action. It is a natural emotional build-up that happens when feelings can no longer stay compressed in the same way. They are starting to understand that losing you would not simply mean losing a person from their life. It would feel like losing something that helped them understand themselves more honestly. That realization creates a quiet internal conflict. One part of them still wants distance, safety, and emotional control, but another part keeps turning back toward you, repeatedly, without permission. Thinking, remembering, replaying, imagining what reconnecting would feel like now compared to before. They picture conversations in their mind. They rehearse possible words. They wonder about timing, outcomes, and whether too much time has already passed. These thoughts do not leave easily anymore. They return in stillness, in pauses, in moments where nothing distracts the mind. There are times when they almost act, almost reach out, almost break the silence. But fear still steps in at the last moment. Not because the feeling is weak, but because it is intense. And even fear begins to lose strength when it is repeated too many times. If you are still here, you can feel how this is building layer by layer. And underneath all of this, something even more important is shifting. The connection is no longer something they can reduce, ignore, or mentally separate from themselves. It has embedded itself into how they interpret emotional reality. Memories now carry weight where they once felt ordinary. Small details return without warning. A sound, a time of day, a place, a word. All of it can suddenly bring your presence back into their awareness. At first, they tried to resist it. They tried to stay busy, distract themselves, convince themselves it would fade with enough distance. But instead of fading, it became more defined, more persistent in quiet moments, more noticeable in emotional gaps. And this creates imbalance inside them because their outer appearance and inner experience are no longer aligned. On the outside, they may still seem composed, but inside, something is reorganizing itself. The emotional structure they relied on is shifting. And beneath all resistance, a simple truth keeps repeating itself. No one else has created this same depth of emotional recognition in them. No one else has reached this part of them in the same way. And once that understanding fully settles, it does not just change how they think about you. It changes how they relate to silence itself and how long they can continue living inside it.